X's and O's on the KFAN Minnesota Vikings radio network is underway, and the Minnesota Vikings host the Philadelphia Eagles this Sunday at noon. Welcome to X's and O's, where we begin each and every week with Minnesota Vikings head coach Mike Zimmer. Congratulations on the victory against the New York Giants. And coming back home, I don't, personally speaking, I don't think you're going to have to request the fans to be loud in a game like this. Occasionally you will do that at your Friday press conference or Sundays with me because you're off a win. In my opinion, you're off a win. I don't think this fan base likes the Eagles, maybe as much so because of the fan base and the NFC title game. So, they I predict will be very loud Sunday at noon. And against an Eagles offense like this, why is it important for the crowd to be loud?
Well, they're in the shotgun a large percentage of the time. He's going to make his checks and different run options off of the RPOs and different things that they do. So the louder they are, the better.
Now, did you, against the Giants, get to use some of your favorite calls? Like, did you have some things on your call sheet that you absolutely loved? Did you get to use those?
Well, we used a few of them. There's always some that you don't get out because you don't get the right groupings or it's not the right situation, right down in distance. But you get to look at some things.
During the course of the game, if you're waiting for something or looking for something and just sitting on something and it doesn't happen, does that become frustrating?
Sometimes, you want to try to get the ones you really like called. And, again, it just has to be the right situation, the right part of the game. You got to get, hopefully you get the right formation and go from there.
Let me ask you this. How frequently do games fall for your defense the way you thought they would during the week of practice?
Typically not often.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know if there's been a game that we haven't made several adjustments somewhere in the first quarter.
Yeah. So, like, maybe the topic off that is, granted you didn't win the game, but maybe the Green Bay game, where they jump up 21-0 in 15 minutes and change, and I don't know what happened on the sideline, but nevertheless, the whole thing changed after that.
Yeah, we have enough calls that we can adjust throughout the course of the ball game. We adjust blitzes, we adjust coverages, we adjust run fronts, but it's constantly going on.
So you're saying this can be complicated?
It's 3 hours of work, that's for sure.
People often hear offenses have 15-play scripts. Is that ever the same case with the defense? Like, do you come in with a script of how you want it to unfurl?
Well, I wouldn't say it's a script. Sometimes I'll go into a game and I'll say, okay, I want to be in this personnel group regardless of what they're in for the first 4 plays, and then we'll change it up and we'll go to something else. And there's a lot of times that you don't know the first call until they walk out on the field.
Could you ever see yourself not calling a game? Because it seems like it's so much fun, but it's intense.
It's really not much fun. It's very nerve-wracking because you feel like, offensively, if you make a bad call or it doesn't work, you punt. If you make a bad call on defense, it's a good chance it could be a touchdown.
Right. Yeah, and how do you handle that? You just move on, right?
You just move on. You go try and fix it the next time.
What with George Edwards, the defensive coordinator, what's most important about George's in-game role?
Well, he handles. We will talk during the course of the series, and then he'll talk to the defense about changes we need to make. He'll make sure everybody's on the same page, communicate with the linebackers, communicate with the defensive line and the secondary. We may have to play a different combination route differently the next time we get it, or like I'll mention to him, hey, if next series I'm going to call, these are the calls I'm going to make, and he'll alert them to them, and so the players can kind of get in a jump start on what may come out of the headset.
So this is Wednesday evening. After you beat the Giants, you start getting ready for Philadelphia. I would imagine George is one of the first people with whom you meet early in the week to start getting the next plan ready, right?
Yeah, but we kind of meet all together defensively. We the whole staff is in there, and we'll sit down and we'll discuss things. Everybody has good ideas. Jerry has good ideas, and Andre and Adam. Really everybody. Nick Rollis has good ideas.
Yeah.
Jeff Howard, everybody has good ideas, and we throw them all out there and then see which ones we like best.
When you and Rick, when you and the GM get together after games early on a Monday and you rewatch the game, like what are some things you're looking for?
Just how the guys play. We look at who had a good game. Rick will ask me questions like what should have this player have done here, what should that player have done there, and I'll try to explain to him exactly what the scheme is and how we're going about it, and we'll sit down and watch all three phases.
Does Dalvin Cook lead the team in receptions by design or process of the games?
Yeah, I think it's just part of the game. Obviously we want to try to get him the ball some in space, but to say the passing game is going through Dalvin probably isn't really what we want to do.
Now, when you have a back who can run it as well as him, and I know you're quite fond of the way he runs, but catches and makes guys miss too. I mean, how great is that for the offense?
Yeah, and he had some terrific runs last week. There's one run he caught in the middle of the field and really outran two guys almost to the sideline and almost in the end zone with his speed. But we'd prefer to let him run the ball, get him some screens once in a while, some of those things, and if we get a chance to get him a couple throws in space, that's good enough for us. We've got good receivers and good tight ends, and we prefer to get them the ball in the passing game.
Not everybody's good on the screen, right? I mean, it's a patience game. I would imagine it's a 1 second, 2 second, 3 second, whatever.
Well, the timing has to be very good, and the quarterback has to be good with it, and the offensive line has to be good with it. So we practice it all the time. We had a couple really nice screens last week, and those tend to slow the defense down. It may pull a guy out of the pass rush. I mean, there's a lot of things that happens, no different than if a quarterback scrambles. So when those kind of things happen, then the defense gets a little bit more reserved with the way they rush the passer. You might have a defensive tackle checking the back for the screen, or a defensive end or a linebacker hugging the back for the screen, or you might get more man coverage.
So clearly it was identified the Giants game was a good screen game, but I would imagine not every game is a good screen game. Like what leads to the potential of a game being like that?
Part of it is how their coverages, how they overload the coverages. Sometimes, you might have a 3-by-1 coverage and they have one linebacker on the backside with a deep safety, or the corner sinks too much off the backside, and you might be able to get a weak side screen. Or it might be that the defensive end just rushes like crazy, and you can kind of just throw him by and then get the tackle or the guard up on the linebacker. So, it's something that varies every week.
Philadelphia and coordinator Jim Schwartz and that wide 9 technique, is that still what he does, and does it make it more tricky to bootleg and get outside?
Some ways. They'll line up in a wide 9. Some they'll line up in and they'll move both those guys down into a 6 technique and run what we call a lightning, where they're moving down inside and keeping the linebacker out. They'll do some of that. They'll move the front, but basically they're going to be a 4-down front. They'll have some 5-man pressures. They'll get some 0 pressures when they get into, and when you cross the 50-yard line. They got a couple, they're a lot of 3 deep, but then they'll get to some cover 2 trap defenses in the back end. So, but they're 4-down guys. They're going to get up the field and go.
You beat Carson Wentz last year. He threw for a couple of TDs. You sacked him 3 times. He lost a fumble that Linval got into the end zone. Is there anything different about him this year, Carson Wentz?
No, I don't think so. He's throwing the ball well. He's still using his legs. He's a really hard guy to get down on the ground because he's so big and strong. Excellent football player. Their offensive line is huge, very similar to the Raiders, but probably better personnel. So they do a good job. They got good backs. Howard is the back, and he's always been a load.
You can't get away from him, right?
No, try to get him out of the division. Can't.
How is their offense different when Deshaun Jackson does not play?
Well, they lose some of the speed, but they still got Alshon Jeffrey, and Ertz
Nelson Aguilar.
Yeah, Aguilar and Ertz is a great tight end, kind of his safety blanket. So they've got a lot of weapons. They do a lot of different things. They've got the RPOs, they've got the quick passes, they got their shots down the field. So it'll be a really good test for us.
Time for two more. You mentioned Jordon Howard. It seems he has ascended to their number one back. How do they use him?
Actually, they use all three backs very similar. They'll line him up in a no back formation. He'll be out there wide. They'll line him up and they'll run the bellies with him, the RPOs, the inside zones. So really not too much different. He's a guy that's always been a very hard running, fall forward guy that we need to do a great job on.
Last one. Speaking of Zach Ertz. Does playing Evan Engram last a game in any way help you prepare for a tight end like Zach Ertz?
Well, it's a little bit different. They're both great players. So I guess maybe some of the things you can still bank on, but they're both great players. Ertz is a guy that is going to find the open space. He's not going to run and get covered. He's going to stop and turn, and he might cut the route a little bit short and then bend it a little higher at the end. So he's a very gifted route runner that has excellent hands, good speed, and understands where he needs to be in the passing game.
So from a high-end comparison standpoint with like Irv Smith Jr., youngest player in the NFL, when everything completely clicks for Irv, could he be like Zach Ertz?
It's hard to say.
Yeah.
I think Irv has a chance to be a very, very good player, but to compare him to a guy that is of this nature is a little early for me.
Good luck.
All right, thanks.
Mike Zimmer, head coach of the Minnesota Vikings, and I'm Paul Allen on X's and O's on the KFAN Minnesota Vikings Radio Network.